Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Bart.
Okay, just to inform you that we are recording as of now, so be careful what you say. Okay. 1 more minute and then we can start. Okay, let's go ahead. Thank you all for joining. We have given this presentation also in Antwerp. Now it's Rotterdam, and we will also present it in Sofia. It's an internal presentation, so an internal document about brand Quadrigy, the pillars, the business solutions, and the services. What we have seen is that there was quite a lot of confusion about the terminology and how we were using the different terms, and that's why we have built this presentation. We also see that management has done quite some work in focusing on the various businesses within the company, within brand Quadrigy, and creating a clear structure there. So that for design board, we bring creative solutions. For Neroc, Marcom and retail solutions. We have DSN packaging solutions. In Belgium, we have there the favorites, which working closely together. It's a partnership with Neroc. Then in Holland, we have the same structure. So also design board, Neroc, DSN, often a common website, and also in Sofia we have design board and DSN, providing each time the same solutions. If you want to know more information about this structure, the setup, please address to Wout and Erik. They certainly can give you more insight on this. Then what we are going to present to you today is that so in order to clarify which company takes on which activity, therefore in fact we developed this internal document explaining each of the services. So this way you understand the service that we provide in each of the pillars, and also for you to be able to explain it in your own words. Often we are so much into working into one pillar, for example in produce, that we not necessarily know what is happening in create or in amplify, what our colleagues are doing. And that's the idea that we'll be able to explain it, describe it, or if somebody, a client or your in the family friends are asking about it, that you will be able to explain it. The second objective was certainly to create a unity in terminology. And then also very important is that we are not going to reinvent the wheel, that we know exactly, for each of the pillars, who is the go-to person, who can we talk to, what is the team behind it. Sometimes also a competence center like we have in Sofia, the competence at 3D. There is each time presentation material. There are often rate cards, price grids available. There is an expert team also that is working on those kind of assignments. So the objective here is that if we have to know something, for example, about key visual development, that we know it belongs to the create pillar, and that we talk to Marianne. The same if somebody within the create pillar has questions about wireframes, printing plates, color management, that he knows who to address to, and also ask for the material. The way we will show these pages, I will quickly, that's a page from Marianne that she will explain. So each time in the top, you see the service that belongs to a business solution and that belongs to a pillar. In each of the pages, we do have a description of what is this service about. What is the input that you need to develop it, to make this service happen? What is the deliverable, the output going out to the client or to the next phase in our process? We also looked into the functions that are needed to develop this service, and we looked across entities. So in Antwerp, Sofia, and Rotterdam, which kind of functions do we have? And we notice sometimes that we don't have necessarily the function in-house, but that we work with external partners based on contracts. Also, the added value of that service, added value often for the client. Out of this service, we also see that there is often extra deliverables, extra products that we can provide, and also on which we can sell to the client. And then we did a little exercise on expertise of service, just looking at ourselves. What level do we give to it? What is our expertise? Is it something that is just a new service and we still have to develop and there is no presentation, no rate card, no team behind it? Or is it a 5 where we are really, market leaders and experts in the market? That's how we build up these pages. The document will be available. So this document plus also the recorded presentation in SciLive. SciLive is a new tool that we're using already in Antwerp a lot for documented information and training purposes, which will be soon also used for events and CAPA, so for quality incident management. And we're also going to start that in Rotterdam. Dennis will take the lead there as an administrator, and I will support in terms of setting up, because we already have quite some experience on that in Antwerp. Just as we are many participants and also a lot of pages to go through, I would like to ask you to put on mute. For questions, we do have a Q&A session at the end, and otherwise you always can address mails to myself, and then I will direct them to the right person and come back to you with the answers. So as you can see, it's quite a lot of services that we provide. First, Marianne will take us through Create, so what Designboard is doing, and then we go to Amplify, Produce, and Automate. So I will give the word to Marianne.
Good afternoon, everyone. So just to build on what Bart said, obviously we offer a lot of services, and for most of our clients, when we are briefed, we already understand which services are going to be possible to offer the client or not. But we certainly always challenge the brief that we receive and look for opportunities to introduce at least 3 or 4 of these services onto every project that we receive. So a lot of the projects that we receive from our biggest clients, like Procter & Gamble and Danone, for example, we will also have a big budget of, say, 50,000 plus. So here we know that it might be interesting for them to, for example, starting with this service here, creative ideation, it might be interesting for them to engage in a workshop with ourselves and also their marketing team to identify opportunities or challenges that we see around their branding or their product or within the marketplace in general. Or indeed, the client might sometimes even tell us that they have a new innovation or a new product or a marketing initiative, and they would like us to help them define a reason to believe and a way to position themselves in the market so that, they have a good launch. So normally, first off, we will start with a deep dive into their business objectives, and we'll look at their market insights, their competitive landscapes, any consumer insights that they've already gathered. And with all this available information, we will try to develop fresh ideas and relevant solutions that can enable them to move forward with a clear framework in terms of how they can best realize both their business solutions and their brand opportunities. So we use a variety of tools such as concept mapping to help them question existing assumptions around their products or their brand. We deep dive into like consumer beliefs and mindsets, both the conscious and the subconscious. We have these 4 lenses that we always apply in every workshop to really sort of focus the various aspects of the new innovation or product that they have. And we prototype key visuals, we develop product stories, and we develop concept boards and mood boards to visually bring our ideas to life and hopefully, you know, wow our client and make them realize that we've got a really good solution on the table for them. So next one, so brand positioning and brand identity. So it's exactly via these creative ideation sessions that we often realize, for example, that one of the solutions for our client could be to reposition their product. This happens quite often, especially when we work for smaller brands or more regional brands or local jewels. So many brand owners actually launch with the wrong positioning in the market. They might be going after a segment that they can't really compete in, or they don't have a clearly defined point of difference versus competition, or their value proposition is not clearly defined, or a lot of times they're just going after the wrong target audience, or they're trying to appeal to too many people at the same time, not really prepared. You know, they're always greedy in the beginning. They like to say like, this product is for everybody, but sometimes it helps to have a clear idea of your target audience and then really position yourself to go after them, at least for the first couple of years that you're in the market. So we work with our clients to develop a brand pyramid where we try to clearly define their offer, what their brand promise is, and also what their most competitive positioning is versus the rest of the market. So a new brand position could mean sometimes that we try to copy the leader in the market, but we might also decide to position their brand as a challenger brand, or even a unique brand that could become a bit of a catalyst. So this is where crafting the right brand identity comes into play. Really understanding how a brand communicates and behaves, how it looks, and what it stands for, will strengthen a brand's positioning and also ensure that it truly engages with the target audience that we've put in place to understand what appeals to the consumer. So it's the usual things of trying to identify if we want the brand to like be young and trendy, if we want it to have a sense of humor, do we want it to represent a certain point of view, stand for something, and also focusing on things such as like, you know, how will this product enhance your life, bring value to your life? Is it solving a problem, for example? Is it facilitating something that you do on a daily basis? Is it informative, etc.? How a product adds value to consumers' lives and how it's relevant is really important, especially as we know that many brands only survive in the market for 6 months, then they actually start crashing. So normally we say that once a brand has been on the market for 2 years plus, it's established itself in consumers' lives, and it's proven that it's able to bring this relevance that we try to help brand owners establish. So brand architecture. Okay, so here, when we look at brand management from a portfolio point of view, brand architecture is really a system that organizes brands and products in a way that makes their offer understandable to the consumer, especially when you're in the supermarket and in front of the shelf. So for example, I always give the example that Ariel, Dash, and Drift are all laundry brands here in Belgium, but consumers don't know that they're all owned by P&G, for example. Only that they each offer a different benefit or value proposition in the laundry category, because they're all positioned again to target a different consumer segment. So that's why P&G is what we call a house of brands, which means that they own many different brands that operate independently from each other. So from a strategic point of view, part of our job is to explore how we can best unify and differentiate our P&G brands and their product offering via, you know, a concise brand architecture. So it's really clear to the consumers which products are part of a specific range, what that range might represent from a value point of view, what the benefit is versus another range that might cost a little bit more, a little bit less, And this is again all about, what's the reason to believe per brand, per tiering structure, and for each of the product lineups. So naming strategy. So we're very proactive in coming up with new product and variant names. And even if a client doesn't ask us, we're always coming up with our own little list of names that we think could be interesting or relevant. This also includes claims and taglines. So we have an internal tool that we call Reach, where we will carry out research, and then we will envision the name in the marketplace and also try to assess the success with the consumers before creating the new product and evaluating the strength of this name within the marketplace. So what we've learned is that names that already give a clue to the product's benefits are really the most popular, as are names that might suggest some sort of lifestyle or an attitude that people like to be associated with. And if we're working in local markets, one of the most popular things is to come up with a name that's just catchy or fun, so that people remember it, like bongo or wow or whoa or something like that. It's not always that the name has to be so sophisticated. Sometimes it's just that people look at it, can remember it, and can relate to it. So that sort of takes us into storytelling, which we obviously use to connect the brand to the consumer. So we all know that the way a person tells a story is really important. Some people are very good at telling a story when you go out for a drink and everybody's listening to them, and other people aren't as good. So storytelling is all about having this ability to talk about a product so that the consumer engages with the product and also feels reassured, inspired, and convinced that this product is a product that they can trust and that they can really believe in. So for a lot of our clients, we tend to tell stories around the ingredients in a product, how they work, how they will enhance your life. And it's important that you understand that the way you link what you stand for to what you do, to the quality and the values of your brand is really important. And again, sort of pulls the consumer in further in believing in your brand. So concepts and mood boards, you all know those. Again, following the workshops that we tend to do with our clients, we typically explore sort of first ideas and how they could be brought to life via design concepts. So a lot of times after a workshop, we come back with these big pieces of paper covered in tape. And the first thing that we do is really sit down and look at how we can differentiate our concepts to have as many as possible to bring back to the client. And then depending on which ideas that they feel are most relevant to them or that they can get away with from a legal point of view or market point of view, these are the ones that we will then flesh out further. Our clients then use these concept and mood boards themselves to make important decisions in terms of how a new product could look and feel. And they typically will test these with consumers to also understand if consumers like them and if they're understood by consumers and if consumers are prepared to buy into them. So market and consumer insights. So our ideas are often backed up by market insights and research. It's not just that we have an idea and then everybody jumps on it. A lot of times it helps us if we can show them that, this is what the consumer thinks. And this can be based on research that we do in the category versus competition, or sometimes just general insights that we have working with Ipsos and trendsetters, where we also get a lot of reports where we can read up on what's in right now, what does the consumer want right now. As you all know, we work a lot with Procter & Gamble, and so Procter & Gamble have the luxury of having their own market and consumer insight specialists. For their projects, I mean, they usually tell us what the latest trends are and what the latest marketing insights and information that they have around their categories. So it works well for us because we also learn a lot from P&G that we can then share with our other consumers. Okay, illustrations and storyboarding. So once we get the green light to move forward with a winning idea from the client, it's often useful to use illustrations and storyboards to enhance our concepts further, especially if we're going to create a series of designs or small animations or in particular video. So this way we can get alignment upfront from our clients, really on a step-by-step basis, so that, you know, rather than rolling out an idea, if you're used to making videos, you know how time consuming that is, and you share it with the consumer, with the client, and they don't like what you've done. A lot of times, if you're using a storyboard, you can already show them frame by frame what you plan to do. So at the end of it, if there's something they don't like, it's just the color or the font or something that's easy to change versus having to redo it over and over again. So very useful for us. Next steps are key visuals, something that we work on with almost every project that we have. So illustrations, you know, can be a great way to log a design strategy for a key visual before we search for the right graphical treatment, photography, and other images in line with the concepts that the client has chose to move forward with. So key visuals are really the hero images and the hero messaging that you know you will see in a campaign. So it's that one image or set of images that everybody will associate with the new product that you're launching. We normally create an emotional mood board and also a functional mood board for consumers to relate to, and again to drive the reason to believe, depending on what your buy-in is when it comes to consideration at the point of purchase. So, okay, visual identity system. So at the core, a visual identity system is really composed of a brand signature, also known as the logo, to serve as a trademark at the very least. Then to support the logo, we also establish a set of complementary graphical treatments, styles of photography, shapes, colors, typography, etc., that will belong to the visual brand identity. And this allows us to understand how we can craft a packaging system, for example, across tiers, across pillars, and across different variants to further strengthen and reinforce that visual identity. So when it comes to execution, we know that it has to address the full range of potential usages. So different sizes, being printed on different materials, different shapes. There's lots of constraints, as I'm sure you all know, when it comes to printing these, especially as we work for a lot of large clients. They work with printers all over the world, and it's quite frustrating sometimes that we need to go with the lowest denominator. So which of the printers has the poorest printing technique, and that's the one that we were sometimes forced to go with, you know, printing in 7 colors or 9 colors. Because that's all they've got in Latin America, and we want to make sure that the brand identity is consistent globally. So it's absolutely key, of course, to craft the visual identity system in a manner that ensures that it looks and feels holistic across all touch points. So it's not just if it glows, if here we've got the aerial atomium, it glows, it looks really gorgeous when you see it on shelf in Europe, but then you go to China or Latin America and it looks completely different. Sometimes you can argue with the client and say, how important is that? It's a different consumer that sees the brand at IFMOT, but for our global clients, it's very important. Okay, so creative design explorations, something that we work on a daily basis with, actually. And again, so this is really where, you know, you've got a winning concept and now you're moving on to the actual packaging design. So initially, we're always asked to push the bar, you know, and come up with like wow factor designs that everybody loves. And it's a time that the creatives really enjoy or allow themselves to enjoy for a couple of weeks, because usually what happens is, you know, we come up with these great packaging designs, everybody loves them and are persuaded by them. But then we learn that there will be lots of different constraints in terms of, you know, what we can actually realize on pack. But for this particular phase of the project, it's really about creating a wow factor that we feel truly stops holes and closes the deal with consumers at first moment of truth. And sometimes our clients have taken these concept or explorations into consumer testing, and consumers have loved them. And it's actually turned out to be a mistake, because once we have to realize it on the actual packaging and apply all the mandatory legal information, et cetera, that needs to go on there, that particular image that you, for example, see like on Chipso on the far right, you know, we can't have the mouth, it's too sensual, we can't have the crisps visualized in this way, we can't show the ingredients, and we end up with something that looks and feels quite different. But anyway, this phase is all about wowing and impressing the client and the consumers potentially with our creative thinking. And so, yes, packaging design. So this, we know, really depending on the actual format and the material and all the printing constraints, like I said before, there's a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration. And suddenly you realize that, you know, once you've shared your design with legal, there's even more constraints. Once you realize that this design actually has to be printed in 7 different countries, and the client would like at least 5 of these languages to be on the pack, again, you're ending up with less and less of the design that you originally had in mind. So it's a creative challenge to recreate the original design explorations on pack, but we've got a lot of expertise doing that. And we have a saying at Design Board that we like to use, and that is that, you know, people always say think outside of the box, and we say that actually we do the opposite. We think inside the box within all the constraints that we have, and we try to keep this in mind. Even when we start just with conceptualizing a design, knowing that at the end of the day, we're not going to have, for example, transparent packaging or transparent liquid with glitter in it. We are going to be printing on a small square opaque box, and people won't even be able to see the product. So these are the kind of things I'm talking about. Brand guidelines. Okay, so we can't say it often enough. Visual consistency in everything that we do is a top priority, and it helps all brand stakeholders in developing a holistic brand approach. So brand guidelines also promote a uniquely recognizable brand identity that stands out from competition and remain memorable in the minds of consumers. So it's really there to make sure that everybody working on a brand have a united view of the brand's identity. And in particular, you know, what is it we're trying to communicate to the consumers? You've probably worked with these a lot. What kind of colors do you have to use? What are the right sizes, ingredients, everything you can use, so that you don't end up with something that suddenly looks completely different. And I think for most brands today, that is the case. You know, the brand guidelines are very strict, right down to, you know, selecting the images you can use, the kind of people you can have on pack, the font, the exact color scheme. And that, again, like we talked about earlier, it just ensures that your brand looks and feels holistic across all touch points, even from a global point of view or regional point of view. And then finally, adaptation design. So again, we always tell our clients that we have a very dedicated and expert team internally for design adaptations. So here the winning design is moved onto additional variants and formats and forms. And the objective is really to make sure that, you know, no matter what the size or form of your packaging is, your brand identity and your variant visualizations look and feel the same across all 4 formats. Sometimes we argue again with the client, it's pointless though, that, you know, a lot of times when you go to a store, you won't necessarily find all of these products next to each other. They might be positioned around different areas in a category. But the point is that, you know, more and more as we drive regiment in our branding, so that, you know, that means that, for example, we teach the consumer that, you know, step 1 is, and I'm just giving the example here of Ariel. Step 1 is, you know, apply a stain remover. Step 2 is apply a detergent. Step 3 is apply, you know, the scent boosters. Driving regiment means teaching her that she needs to follow these steps and use these products across. So even if in the store she won't see these particular brands right next to each other, when she gets them home following our system and she lines them up on her washing machine, again, she gets this holistic and reassuring FMOD across all the different forms that she's got. And this is actually a massive challenge in adaptation design. You know, I'm always told that as well, that the creative team has all these great ideas, but we don't work without an adaptation designer alongside us once we start moving from concept onto packaging design, because they will immediately, you know, point out to us what is possible and what is not possible when we start rolling the design out. So again, something we have a lot of expertise in, crafting these executions in a way that's print feasible, adapting them to fit specific needs for the client and for the printer alike. And I think that's my last page.
Yeah. Thank you, Marianne. This is also the adaptation design service is also a good example. We have put it on the create pillar, but it's something that can come up in amplify, can come up in produce. Important is that we know that we have an expert team in the create, but it also could be that we're going to execute it in produce, but then applying the prices of the create, so of the design, and also the timelines of design. So this one, together with there's other services that we have brought under a certain pillar, like photography. You will see it under amplify, but it can come up in the create pillar, as there they have to define the concept of the photography. It can come up with amplify for your macro folder, and it can come up in produce for just a simple pack shot. So you see, some of the services play in different business solutions or pillars, but it's important that you know who to address to and what is the objective of the request, and then you can allocate it to the right team. Thank you very much, Marianne, for your clear explanations.
It's my pleasure.
Next, we will go to Markham and Retail Solutions, sitting with Nerok, and therefore we have Yannick, who will take us through the different slides.
All right, thank you, Bart. So the first one, so we have two services in Amplify, which is brand activation and marketing collateral. The first one is brand activation that we're going to see. And then the first one is the shopper and retail activation, and it's a whole set of deliverables produced to make sure that a certain product or action is put in the spotlight. So this starts from a concept designed by a creative designer in cooperation with a copywriter, and together with the customer, all touch points are nominated. This can be print or online. So we're talking about a campaign where different aspects are made, and these could be flyers or gadgets, but also online mails or banners, and all of these things have one thing in common, or a common goal or an action. Then we have the point of sale. It's a whole set of deliverables produced to make sure that a certain product or action is put in the spotlight. This starts from a concept designed by a creative designer in cooperation with a copywriter, and together with the customer, all touch points are nominated. It can be print or online or offline. So within a campaign, there can be different point of sale materials like shelf cards or wobblers, and all of these have a common message, and the brand goes first here. Usually the logo is very prominent, and we also have digital point of sales, which we will talk about later. Then we have e-commerce banners, B2B and B2C. There are communication collateral that enhances the promotion via online channel, can be additional to television commercials, radio, and or print. And this starts from a concept designed by a creative designer in cooperation with a copywriter. And together with the customer, all touch points are nominated. This can be omni-channel, so present in all different media or channels. Banners often have a specific call to action, like a button that has to initiate the user to do something. The banners can be animated GIFs or static JPEGs or PNGs, and they can appear anywhere online. For example, if you visited the IKEA website and trying to look for a product, then you might see this product later again when you're reading the news. Then we have, it's also possible that we have the video like we see here for X November. All right. Then we have social media content. It's the development of imagery, digital content, and copy to generate posts and advertising for reach, engage, act, and converse. These are often based on a global content calendar that sets out objectives and topics on a weekly or monthly basis. So it's a combination of text and images being placed on social media, can be static or animated. So the movie from the previous slide can be used on social media, for example. And these posts can be organic or paid. So organic means that it's just posted on the Instagram, for example, like we see with Nutrilon. Or paid means that we pay to reach a larger audience. For example, you can pay for posts on social media to reach moms between 25 and 35 in Amsterdam or something. Then we have video animation. We do small productions within our internal team or lead more professional productions with an external partner. For these assignments, we are in charge of composition and adding text and or voiceover in different languages. So the development of small animation films is done in our studio with After Effects or Premiere Pro. We also sometimes shoot on locations, although they're not Hollywood movies, but rather static recordings like interviews or show reels, or we make short tutorials about how to use an app on the smartphone, or simple print screens are made with the app that we bring to life. Then we have digital point of sale. We do productions for online bannering with rollout to all sizes and with or without moving items. We make newsletters that are responsive on all devices. So mainly these are two things. On one hand, we have HTML5 banners, which are published online, like the e-commerce banners. On the other hand, we make emails that are sent out to clients or other stakeholders. Important here is to think of the medium that is used on. The banners and emails have to be responsive because the communication has to be the same on all devices, so laptop or tablet or phone. Then we have brochures and catalogs. So for different clients, we produce on a regular basis their brochures and catalogs, completely filled with promotions or a combination of promo and content. Both options are possible, and a good payment dam can help to automate this process. Communication can be regulated through one of our systems, and this is a process which combines amplify and produce. So we can use different tools here, like our own Madame system we use for Macro Metro Belgium, or Omnio or Easy Catalog. And this way we can make a brochure very fast if we have good input from the client. So if they use the system very well, then we can make a folder or a brochure very fast. Then we have sales and promo materials. We have different types. The output is always a PDF, which can be used in different ways. For example, window stickers or posters like we see here. Or also in store on the next, yes, we have promo materials like bags, posters, and other designs in store. Or we can have bigger things in cardboard on 3D on the next slide. Yes, that are crafted. So things like wobblers and displays, small or big things, like we see from the campaign from Unilever here to get a free sunglass. So the same content is being used in different deliverables. Then we have mockups and sales samples are used as part of product development process in marketing and consumer research. These are produced both online for online testing and in on-site consumer testing. So online can be part of mood boards, shelves, or standalone for quantitative and qualitative testing purposes. Offline can be the development of anything from 1 to 100 and go from simple paper labels to high complex sleeves, from normal inks to special technologies. So these mockups can be made also in every step of the process. So during COVID, there have been less physical mockups, of course, but we have more online renders of products. And the benefits of these mockups is that it allows the client to share with the different stakeholders a representative or the product before the design actually goes into the shop. Then, as mentioned before, we also have photography, so high resolution photography of final selected imagery led by creative direction and a stylist. We specialize in ambience model, portrait, food, and backshot photography for online and offline production. And we also have high expertise in 360 photography. So photography is something that we can start in every step of the process and can be used in all aspects like folders or online banners, or even to make mood boards if we have to. Then we also have photography or stop motion. So stop motion is actually a sequence of images that are being put roughly after each other in such a way that it tells a specific story. And for every shot, small adjustments are made, kind of like the little flip books I used to have when I have a kid. Like you had little flip books with drawings, and you had to go through it, and then you had a little story. And then last but not least, we have 2 and 3D online pack shots. They are digital representations of a packaging. The images are generated through automated visual content production and presented as a single static or animated image. 3D rendered images can be used on e-commerce websites, in advertisements for social media campaigns as CS1 product image, and stored on digital asset library. And they can be made in using Blender or Cinema 4D. And that was it, yes.
Thank you, Yannick, for taking us through the Amplify services. Next, we are moving to packaging solutions, for which we should have Joachim online.
Yes, good afternoon.
Thank you, Joachim.
Okay, some of the services are already coming back from the other pillars, but for sure this is a new one. At DSN, most often we start with the artwork production. Artwork production means that we will assemble a technical and most often a digital file, and we are assembling that file with inputs from different departments. So we will probably receive a design file or design intent, like from our colleagues from Design Board, and probably that will be completed with final codes like EN codes, customer codes. We will also onboard the latest ingredients, which could come, for instance, from a legal text department. We will assemble also that position on the latest cutter guide, because often packaging will be produced from different suppliers at different locations. They all have their own cutter guide. So all those parts will be assembled to one final digital file, which we call a master artwork file. This artwork file for sure goes most often to one of the approval solutions, which will come later into the TGS part. What do we receive as an input? I think all basics from the market, but most often they are Adobe Suite related, and we will stay within that proposition and software to deliver a technical artwork file as a high-res